السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Today we have with us Dr. Tariq Ramadan, and well, we all know about him, and there is no, since we have so little time, so I would not go in details about introducing him. I remember like 2 years ago, we met Dr. Tariq Ramadan and we gifted him a book of Iqbal. And the guy who presented the book was very shy while giving him the book, and he said, we do not know if you know about Iqbal or not. And you came like, you're kidding me. I mean, I take Iqbal very seriously, and it's a part of your PhD as well, right, the reconstruction. So if you can tell us more about how Iqbal, how you came.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for inviting me. No, I think that what is very important, sometimes our brothers coming from Pakistan, they don't know how much Iqbal, beyond Pakistan and beyond even Asia, was instrumental in Islamic thought, in contemporary Islamic thought, for many reasons. The first one, in fact, that we don't study enough is the fact that he was very knowledgeable about the Western philosophy. And he studied Bergson, he studied other philosophers and the German tradition, because this is where he was. And he was able, in fact, to come with a very deep understanding of the Islamic principles, able to respond to the West in a way which was not defensive. And this is what at the time he did that, this was very important, is that, look, I'm not going to apologize,
yeah.
I'm not on the defensive. This is a concept of death and life that I'm coming with from an Islamic perspective. So constructing an Islamic philosophical vision responding to the West and rooted in the Islamic tradition. So this is one part.
Yeah.
The second is what he did when he was giving the lectures around
Allama.
the
reconstruction lectures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the everything which has to do with his understanding of the challenges from within. So in one way, he was talking to the West in a very intellectual way and constructive. The second is was coming with a very challenging way of dealing with the Islamic principles and ijtihad, and the way he was talking about ijtihad was very instrumental. And it was very important for anything which happened in Pakistan, but even people who were in Egypt, for example, from the Islamic movement at the beginning of the 20th century, they were taking from him and learning from him, because he was talking about this dynamism within the Islamic law and jurisprudence, and saying we have to be able to go beyond that. But he had also something which was, he got it right at the beginning of the 20th century, is that our nationalism could be a hindrance in anything which has to do with our way of understanding justice, crossing the border. If you look at what is happening now in the Middle East, what we call the Arab Spring, that I never called the Arab Spring, but in fact, the problem is that if you look at what the Tunisians are doing, the Egyptians are doing, or the Libyans are doing, they are so much focused on their country that there is no transnational movement. It's a nationalist
movements.
They are nationalistic movements and no connection. And in the beginning,
disconnect.
Exactly, he was saying, stop talking about being a Pakistani and Iraqi. And I quoted this in the first book I wrote about him, and then in the PhD that I wrote on the contemporary Islamic thinkers and reformers. The third dimension, which is the best known in the West, and they are very often using this side to cover the other side, which is the intellectual contribution and the fiqhi, religious, legal understanding that he had, is all this dimension of the mystical tradition. He was a poet, but he was also very much dealing with the very deep meaning of Islam in mystical terms.
Which you were emphasizing as well, the jihad of the words, the jihad of meaning, right?
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
The
which is
root behind the thing.
Exactly. He was. So I think that this is where, coming from Pakistan, he is reaching someone who was born and raised in Geneva, coming from Egypt, here in Canada, going back to the Middle East, and this is where we understand that the same principles, with the same goals, maqasid, objectives, are helping us to understand that we need a diversity of thinking and also a diversity of approaches. And he himself, philosophical, legal, mystical, is just telling us, get it all.
Yeah.
Get a comprehensive understanding, and this is where Islam is going to be and should be a contribution to the world, inshallah.
And what do you think? What is the message of Iqbal which is taken by the West and not taken by the people who he was addressing to in Pakistan and India? I mean, is there something that you noticed?
Yes, I think that there is something which is, a two-way process. What is taken from Iqbal in the West is very often, look, he was a poet, an artist, and a mystic, a Sufi.
Yeah.
He's coming from the so it's we can take from
We
here
can take
this
this
dimension.
part of Iqbal.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. I'm saying this is the other Islam. We have very often this in
Yeah.
in Britain, in the States, in English, and in other European languages is this is the good Islam.
Yeah.
Take this.
We are comfortable with this, right?
Exactly. And we neglect everything else that he was saying. He was, a very important political figure,
Yeah.
philosophical understanding of, what has to do with what came afterward with Huntington, which is what
Yeah.
was called the clash of civilizations. And he was in between, at the same time saying, no, it's not a question of power struggle. It's a question of mutual dignity and mutual knowledge. So we have something to bring to the discussion. So, and this part is not very often emphasized in the West. On the other side, and this is where we have to be self-critical, is that very often the Muslims, and in Pakistan, this is the reality of it, we are dealing with struggling for power and dealing with very narrow understanding of what the legal Islamic framework is, and we don't take the universality and the broad and very deep vision of what should be our relationship to the Islamic objectives, more than only obsessed with the Islamic rules. We need to read the rules in the light of the objective, and the objective is a jihad in nafs. When someone is talking about spiritual democracy, he's telling you, get it right. Democracy is not about structure, it's about the identity, the spiritual identity of the people who are working for more freedom. And I think that some Muslims are celebrating Iqbal at the surface of what he did, not with an in-depth understanding of who he was and what he brought to the discussion that we need today.
Last question. I mean, what do you think? Why is it happening? I mean, why are they taking Iqbal on surface? Is it the we are not knowledgeable? We think Iqbal is too difficult, or it's happening with all the scholars right now, right? I mean, this is a common problem.
Yes, it's a common problem, and I think that what you are saying is something which is, let me put it quite bluntly, it's an international Muslim disease, which is we are on the defensive. We are so scared that we end up being obsessed with the periphery of the rules and not the center of the meaning. And we deal with our scholars in such a way, and sometimes this psychological crisis that we are facing is making us think that the best way to protect ourselves is through rules and rejection. Iqbal was saying exactly the opposite. It's through meaning and openness that we win. If you close and are on the defensive, it's already mean that you are being defeated.
Hikmah or courage? Power or hikmah? What comes first?
No, I think that what the motto for everything that I have been saying here in my presence is we need to understand the very meaning of hikmah, wisdom. And this wisdom is, when you get the spiritual message of Islam, you understand that al-hikmah is this inner peace and good behavior. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry. Think about the priorities and how are your projects. So be wise as to your project. But now know, as it happened with the Prophet ﷺ, that people are not going to accept you the way you are. You call for peace, they launch wars. So you have to be prepared. You have to be equipped. So with this, you have to be courageous. Courageous as to this resistance. And there will be no true wisdom without courage. And there will be no courage if you are not imbibed with wisdom.
Dr. Tariq, thank you so much for your time.
Barakallah.
It's a pleasure having you here.